Dr. Maria Montessori is probably the most important educational revolutionary that you don't know. Even if you've never studied her, you are using at least some of the techniques she pioneered. I have no idea why she is so pathologically overlooked and hidden by the American educational system. Maybe it's because she was a woman, and one of very few working in her field at the time. Maybe it's because she was critical of some American educational theorists, and being a rather stubborn woman, she was not willing to collaborate with those she felt were completely wrong. Dr. Montessori was not well received in the U.S. early on, and so she continued her work abroad. Maybe that is the root of the problem. She's not American. Or maybe it was just that her approach was so radically different, we just couldn't accept that we had been doing things so very wrong for so long. Whatever the myriad of reasons, let me take this opportunity to introduce you to my friend and mentor, Dr. Maria Montessori. Montessori was born in 1870, a very big year in European history. This marked the beginning of the modern countries of Italy, Germany, France, etc., a painful birth that led to a number of subsequent wars. Maria grew up in this time of change and modernization. From a fairly wealthy family, Maria enjoyed a life of private education and enrichment. At 13, she joined an all-male technical institute to study engineering. But her first major action of rebellion was to attempt something women just simply didn't do: become a medical doctor. This did not go over very well. You already know the story. It's the same as so many others who have broken the barriers of what is socially acceptable. Her father rejected her, the all-male faculty and student body tormented her, and put up every obstacle they could imagine. Women cruelly derided her for this disgusting behavior. Yet Maria persevered. She not only graduated as the first female doctor in Italy, but she was invited to give a speech at graduation, having earned the respect of her new colleagues. Dr. Montessori became a practicing doctor, one very popular with women who finally had a female practitioner as an option. In one story, a woman had given birth, but the baby was dying and the mother in critical condition. Maria not only saved the mother, but the child as well. When the happy family would see Dr. Montessori, the mother would explain to the child that although she may be her mother, it was Dr. Montessori who gave her life. Dr. Montessori had an affinity for children and eventually began to focus on what we would call pediatrics or psychiatry today. She worked in an asylum called the Orthophrenic School. You can imagine what a dismal place this turn-of-the-century dumping grounds for children dubbed as defectives would have been. Many thought she was wasting her skills. But it was here that she made some of her biggest discoveries. She researched and researched, always an insatiable hunger for knowledge. Then she applied the academic studies of others to real children, learning and fine-tuning along with her young charges. Her genius was in seeing how to take academic research and use it practically, to take the theoretical and make it useful. She began just trying to teach children basic skills like brushing hair and buttoning to help them become more self-reliant. They loved it. Modern occupational therapists owe her thanks. The next event was the most magical. Some of her defectives, thrown away by society, wanted to know about these letters and words they were seeing. She and all the other adults thought they could never learn to read. But she decided to at least teach them something since they were so interested. More research. She developed materials for students to work with, learning to identify and even write letters. Breakthrough. One day, a child discovered reading. Soon, several others made the same discovery. Dr. Montessori had taught defectives how to read and write. To validate this claim, they were given the state exam used by normal children and actually passed. Instead of being proud of her groundbreaking accomplishment, one that led to radical changes in how we view special education, she was horrified. Horrified! What on earth were the schools doing to regular children if not every child could pass an exam that her defectives could? Dr. Montessori gained some news coverage and a bit of notoriety for her work, something that came to the attention of a group of businessmen. businessmen who were also slumlords. They were frustrated with the amount of vandalism and damage being done to their buildings by the unsupervised urchins too young to work in the factories. This was the height of industrialization, and the crushing poverty these people were trying to survive is something we can't even understand. The businessmen wanted Dr. Montessori to create some kind of place to corral these hoodlums, to keep them occupied. Daycare centers and preschools, as we know them, didn't exist yet. The first Casa dei Bambini, the Children's House, was opened in January of 1907. It was here that the Montessori method we use today was discovered. Dr. Montessori was a scientist. She observed and took notes, then observed some more. She developed materials, always fine-tuning. If the material wasn't absolutely perfect, she discarded it. If the children weren't excited and inspired by a material, she threw it away. Without a preconceived notion of how things should be, and the freedom to experiment, she developed a radically new approach to education and redefined what we thought possible for young children to learn. Her ideas blossomed and spread. She traveled extensively, teaching and training. Several wars determined her path. She survived the destruction of World War I, and when she refused to work with Mussolini, she was forced to leave her homeland. She was in Spain when the Spanish Civil War broke out, again requiring her to flee. She was in India when World War II began, where she was detained and forced to spend the war years. How did she react? Keep working! India became a hotbed for the Montessori movement, and she added a peace education part to the curriculum. In all these places around the world, Maria spread her ideas, often viewed as radical. Many researchers have tried to discredit her, making the Montessori method one of the most studied, as detractors tried to find holes in the theory. Instead, she has been validated time and time again. You could write a book about all the research that backs her up, but you'd be the second to do so. Read the science behind the genius if you don't believe me. We have many aspects of her theories in our daily lives and don't even realize it. Instead of nice, neat, straight little rows of desks, if you have tables to work at, thank Maria. Using furniture that is the right size for little bodies, thank you, Maria. Using hands-on materials to learn abstract concepts, thank you, Maria. Working together in circle for activities like calendar and class meetings, thank you, Maria. Creating playgrounds for children to climb, run, jump, and play on, thank you, Maria. Treating children with respect as fellow human beings, instead of something to be seen and not heard. Thank you, Maria. Individualizing education to meet the needs of a specific child. Thank you, Maria. Scaffolding your lessons in a structured format, adjusting instruction to the child. Thank you, Maria. Using both summative and formative assessment. Thank you, Maria. Using multi-age social connections to foster relationships. Thank you, Maria. Empowering children to be responsible for their own education. Thank you, Maria. Teaching children to self-regulate, teaching them time management skills to keep track of their own work. Thank you, Maria. Dr. Montessori was teaching to the multiple intelligences decades before Howard Gardner was even born. Thank you, Maria. So as my friend and mentor Maria would say, follow the child.